So there's a lot of activity happening for investors at the moment, isn't there, John?
There is. Well, we're at the time of recording, which is last week in August.
Yep.
There's been a big announcement, hasn't there?
There has. So we woke up on Monday morning to some big news about the Labor government bringing forward the first home guarantee scheme 3 months. It was going to kick off in January 26, and now it's moved forward to October 1st. So basically from October 1st, there's going to be a lot of activity happening from the first home buyer front, and it's got a lot of investors talking about, are we going to try to dive in beforehand? Yes. I bet you've had a busy week, John.
It's been a busy week. We're a bit bleary-eyed, aren't we? Because everyone's, depending on which angle you're coming from, right? If you're an existing homeowner, you're sitting back saying, oh, how good is this? If you are an investor wanting to get into the market, you're like, hang on, those buggers are coming in 3 months earlier than I thought, so I've got to get my skates on. And if you're a first homeowner, obviously you're waking up saying Christmas is coming early.
Do I have to run? Now, we were chatting before kicking off this episode saying we'd both spoken to a lot of clients this week that feel the urgency. And I think when that urgency gets felt, people need to really take some time to rethink their strategy. Yeah. So we wanted to chat today about making sure that even when things are hot and things are moving like the market is now, that you sit back and think, what am I actually buying? What's that asset? And a bit about your strategy.
Absolutely.
Well, you're listening to This Is Property with Rach and John. Let's get into the show.
Yeah, so you raise a good point there in respect to someone's strategy, because the old Warren Buffett saying is, when others show courage, I show fear.
You've said that a lot this week.
I have. I feel as though I'm repeating myself like I've done for the last 8 years on this show. But I think it's really important to understand what's actually, step back from the coalface and say, well, how does this affect me?
Yeah.
And what's in my backyard that I can control first, right?
Yeah, so I'm guessing this week you've had a lot of clarity calls with investors saying, am I just going to buy something now? How do you advise somebody in a time like this when the market's so hot?
Okay, so there's a lot of, and obviously I've had a lot of correspondence with my BAs on the ground saying, all right, how are we going with this? How we react? Like, first of all, we've got to stomach the change and fast forward and bring it forward to obviously October 1. So we've got clients that are currently searching with our BAs that are searching anyway. They know their strategy. They're all in. It's just a matter of finding the right property. We know right around the country, regardless of where it is, that there's low supply, high demand, right? So it's tough there anyway, okay? So those guys, nothing changes other than the fact that we might just get in a little bit quicker. If there was something that was sitting there that was like, yeah, I'll pass on that one. Well, we probably might be okay with that. Let's do it, right?
Yeah.
For the difference of feeling 90% sure versus 92% sure. So, we're in anyway, okay? So we're getting in that little bit quicker. It's the ones that are sitting there saying, well, I think January 1 was coming and I'm going to want to buy property before then. Now I'm accelerating the process to say, right, pre-approval, now I've got to get my strategy together. They're the ones getting the clarity calls sooner rather than later. They're the ones jumping in saying, I need a BA, let's get the ball rolling. But then there's the other side of the first home buyer who's actually the ones in potentially the driver's seat to say, I need to take advantage of this now. They run the risk of buying something just for the sake of it, don't they?
And that's the big thing, buying something for the sake of it. How do we help people avoid making a mistake in a time like this?
So the fundamentals don't change in real estate over the last 100 years, do they? I mean, the metrics are the metrics, and we just look at what's going to work for us in our situation, right? Now, an example of I suppose, someone doing something they probably shouldn't, but are running on emotion is maybe paying too much for something, right? And I go to Sydney because that's the closest capital city for now. And we say, okay, their cap in Sydney is 1.5. So for the first home buyer scheme, right?
Yeah.
So you can go in with a 5% deposit. The bank says I can borrow 1.4. I put in a 5% deposit on a 1.4 purchase per se, right? So I put in 70 grand. My mortgage is 1.33 if my math serves me correctly.
Close.
Yeah. With that in mind, what are the repayments on that? And can I handle that for the next 3 to 5 years? If I can't, I can't buy that.
Yeah.
Right? But some people will rush in because of that October 1 deadline, go and pay 1.4, not know their cash flow management, not know their buffers, not know what's happening in the next 5 years. My wife falls pregnant, or I'm changing industries, or a range of variations in their life that they didn't think of because of this emotion of this announcement. And they wake up in 12 months, 2 years' time and maybe have to sell.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we've seen this, and I know that you would have as well, in different times of the market where things get really excited. And I'm going to use 2019, 2020 as an example,
Yep,
and maybe
COVID.
2007, just before the GFC. That was it felt like this as well. So you would probably know from experience, what sort of mistakes do people tend to make when it's just pumping like this and they're just trying to jump in?
Yeah, I think they buy something that they can't afford.
Yep.
They might not know that at the time because the bank says they can lend this money, so it should be fine. They buy the wrong asset.
Yeah.
As in, I want to be in this suburb, so I'm buying 1-bedroom unit, or I'm not saying all 1-bedroom units are crappy, but let's go with it for the minute and say, I'm buying the wrong asset. And then probably thirdly is I'm probably looking at it saying, well, what do I want in 5 years, 10 years' time? And am I jeopardizing that by going and buying this particular asset or buying at all, right? Because not everyone has to take advantage of this, even though it's lucrative. 5% sounds unbelievable. The biggest issue we've got is servicing that.
Yeah.
Interest rates are on the slide. What if interest rates all of a sudden do a U-turn and go the other way? How many first home buyers are potentially in trouble in 2 years' time?
Yeah. So buy if it's a part of your strategy already, and think about the asset that you're buying. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about areas. So a lot of investors trying to get into the market quickly now, and they're saying, we want to know about areas. How are people researching that? What are people doing? And I know that buyer's agents are becoming a lot more prevalent, especially in a market where there's not a lot of stock.
Yes.
Tell me how people are using a buyer's agent, I guess, to avoid making mistakes or to find stock that might not be available.
Yeah, so everyone wants the off-market opportunity, don't they?
I've heard that 16 times this week.
Yeah, and look, it is a thing. There's no doubt about that. But think logically for a minute and say, well, if I'm the vendor, am I going to want to sell it to Rachel at a discount without having to list the property and run open homes?
No.
Probably not. But there's a small percentage that say, you know what, I don't want people trudging through my house. I don't want real estate agents knocking on the door saying, look, can we do an open home tonight at last minute? I don't want to have to pay marketing fees, and I want this deal done and nice and clean. I've got a buyer through a buyer's agent that says, yeah, I can pay this for it. And that's fair, reasonable market value, and I move that on. There is a small percentage of that. And obviously that's where us as buyer's agents do get an advantage, because we've got good relations with agents in areas right around the country. So there's the part of that. But there's probably another 80% that are just putting a line out to try and catch a fish that means I'm paying 50, 100, 150 grand too much because I've got a off-market property. That's where we can get caught out.
Yeah, so I spoke to a buyer's agent yesterday that said she was looking for a property for a client, and another buyer's agent paid $50,000 above market for that property for their client. So just because you're using a buyer's agent, it just doesn't sound like necessarily you're getting a good deal. Like,
No.
I just want to know, like, while people are jumping in and all of this stuff is hot, how do we say, well, are you still doing your own research too?
Absolutely. And we know, and as I said at the top of the show, there's low supply, high demand. So we, as a vendor, you want to get and maximise that, don't you? So you're going to take that to market majority of the time.
Yeah.
And I've got a forum here, so I'm going to use it. There's a lot of rogue buyer's agents out there, right? Now, they probably don't know they're rogue, but they're maybe young, inexperienced, haven't seen the world for what it is over the last 20 or 30 years and trends and patterns and everything else. And they're going in trying or thinking they might be getting a great result for their client and maybe thinking naively that, oh, yeah, property just continues to grow, so I'm okay to pay 20 grand over and the client gets a deal within 3 weeks versus understanding the market and it taking another month, getting a better asset for the longer term. And there's a lot of buyer's agents that are actually don't even go and see a property. They'll get a property.
Really?
Yeah, they'll get a property manager to go and do the videos and the photos for their agency to give back to the client that they're working with. Right? That's fraught with danger. Like, they're not even kicking the tires. That's a real concern. And the industry hasn't got the regulations to monitor that.
Yeah, I thought I was paying the buyer's agent to inspect the property for me.
Correct.
So some of them might have been going inside.
No. And charging 30 grand for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And because people are feeling desperate. Do you think there's
They're doing
do you think there's a sense of desperation? I'm hearing desperation.
Absolutely, it's desperation. Yeah. And the glorification of I'm using a buyer's agent that will give me a better result than if I went and did it myself. And maybe that's the case. And we believe that's the case in a lot of cases. But I don't think it's a blanket, I'll just go and use a buyer's agent, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be thought through to say, well, okay, and this is the government's fault, by the way. This is the government's fault for not building enough houses 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's created all this hype and drama. Is so, well, can I do it myself? A, have I got enough time to go and find this property myself? B, do I have the knowledge to go and do that, as in design my own strategy and understand what something's worth in a particular area? And C, more importantly, have I got the confidence to do that myself and back myself in without the help of someone that's maybe been there and done that before? In a lot of cases, it's all three combined. No time, no knowledge, no confidence. So yes, you need to outsource that. But if you've got time, if you've got knowledge, and if you've got the confidence that you can gain through the knowledge process, I firmly believe you can do it yourself.
And I guess...
And I run a buyer's agent company, right?
And a lot of clients do it themselves.
Yeah.
But they enjoy doing that research side of things.
That's right, which requires time. Now, I've got an opinion piece on that as well, but AI is allowing people to be efficient with their time and say, right, I'm John, I live in Australia, I want to buy residential property, maximum 700K, tell me the locations I'm best suited to buy in. And it spits out a whole heap of results and data on those particular locations. So I go and buy in one of those locations, but I don't know the ins and outs of that particular location. I'm just relying on AI and what they've found on the internet to give me some stats, right? So that's where people are cheating the system to say, yeah, it's giving me a result here. I'm getting a lot of people now, more than ever, which is natural, coming to me through a clarity call or whatever saying, I want to go and buy in this region. Okay, why do you want to buy in that? Did you grow up there? Are you moving back there? No, AI. Right?
Oh, wow.
That's where it's at now. So if we're backing AI in that sense, then yeah, we're putting it, we're taking, I suppose we're fast tracking the result. We're going to an exam having thought that they've got all the answers for that exam is my analogy.
100%. Well, we might take a break and we're going to come back and I'm going to give you an example of a client that has had a really tough time, and I would love you to give us some tips of how not to fall into that trap.
This is Property is brought to you by Sphere Home Loans. Sphere Home Loans is a mortgage broker that helps our listeners all around Australia. So, if you want to get into your first home sooner, looking at upgrading, an additional property, or want your current mortgage reviewed, just search Sphere Home Loans or click the link in the show notes, and their dedicated brokers will be able to help you wherever you are. If you are, however, after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to moneypodcast.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. That's moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help.
All right. What are you saying? Give me this client.
Well, I spoke to a client yesterday who is going to be re-entering the market in Sydney.
Yes.
They're going to be buying a family home, but they actually got caught up in the hype of 2019. So it was just as COVID was hitting and the first home guarantee scheme was in, and they felt the pressure to buy because the market was hot.
Similar to now?
Similar to now, and that's why it just really resonated with the feeling of now. It's that feeling of, I said, why did you buy? And it was just the feeling that I had to get in.
Yep. FOMO.
FOMO. They used the first home buy guarantee scheme, and were quite restricted in borrowing at the time, and bought a one-bedroom unit for what the market was telling them it was worth at the time. They've just sold that unit because they would like to buy a family home at a $70,000 loss.
Ooh.
And the reason I want to talk about this example is because not all real estate goes up in value, and I think a lot of our listeners are probably going through this cycle for the first time and may get lulled into a false sense of security that all property goes up, and it's just not the case. So as the expert, I would love you to help guide us through not making that mistake in this kind of market.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate for this particular person. So they've held the property 6 years. 5 years?
5 years.
Give or take. And it's gone down 70K.
That's right.
Right. And unit in Sydney, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. And do you know
One bedroom.
One bedroom. Yep.
So just obviously there must be obviously there's no scarcity of a one bedroom unit, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And that's probably the first part of this is when you're buying something, it doesn't matter what it is, how many of the equivalent are there out there? That's just logic, supply and demand, isn't it? Say, well, okay, and it's happening, there's not many places that it's happening right now in Australia because of what we've spoken about, high supply, low demand. Low supply, high demand. But there are housing markets that are oversupplied at the moment. There's a lot of new properties that are sitting there that can't be sold, or land that can't be sold right next to it, right, in certain pockets of the country, right? Western Melbourne is an example of that right now, where there's too many properties, not enough buyers for various reasons. Units or suburbs that have high amount of units go through that cycle more often than not, and the biggest litmus test is the vacancy rates. When you look at the average of vacancies, like I was chatting to someone the other day, we looked at 3 or 4 different locations, and one of them was on their list, okay? So we looked at that, and the average 20-year vacancy rate was about 3%.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that's too high. I would like the average 20 years to be anywhere between 1% to 2%, to know that we're not going through the highs and lows, the volatility of oversupply. Like years ago, it was the Gold Coast that was always too many apartments, concrete jungle, whatever. Now vacancy rates on the Gold Coast now are 1% less, okay? So buying there now seems fine. Can we go back to the days of oversupply in that area? Potentially, right? But there are certain suburbs in Sydney, and maybe this is one of them, where there just always continues to be too many of them. And not enough demand for people wanting to buy them. Yes, they're affordable, but people are coming in eyes wide open saying, hang on a minute, I've just got concrete all around me and I'm buying this little dog box, but I want a family in 5 years' time. What am I going to do then? And I've tied up all my money in this one asset. That's the problem.
And you haven't just tied up all your money in that asset. You've tied up your one bite of the cherry of using the first home guarantee.
Yes.
So this particular client, if they hadn't put their money into that unit, they would be able to right now buy exactly what they want in the area that they want. But now because they've used that guarantee, already you don't get a second go at it. So you're paying full freight on stamp duty, which at that level they would be anyway.
Yes.
But there's lender's mortgage insurance of $50,000 for their purchase because they've still only got a 5% deposit.
Yeah.
So that $50,000, like, you don't just have your sale costs and your buy costs of the first property. You've got that stamp duty and then the full mortgage insurance on the second because you didn't make money on the first property.
Yeah, because the first exercise didn't work for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where the trap is, Rach, I think, is like in New South Wales, for example, and it's different in every state, but New South Wales for stamp duty, because you can have wins on 4 levels here, really. You've got no LMI, potentially no stamp duty. You got the first home super saver scheme, and where's the fourth one?
You might get a grant if it's new, but
you
that's,
could get the fourth is the new, which is to a less extent because not as many people will do that. But so take the 800K in New South Wales. Can I buy a 1-bedroom unit in Sydney sub 800? Yes, I can. I'm saving, give or take, 30 grand stamps. I'm saving, I don't know, 10 or 15 on LMI, would I be? Maybe.
Yeah, well, if a first home buyer right now can buy a unit in Sydney from the 1st of October with $43,000 in the bank.
Yeah. So the savings in my pocket right now is not cash back, but savings might be around 40 to 50K.
Yeah, well, they would be saving, the stamp duty of
30 odd
thousand. And then they've also got the LMI that might have been 25 at that level.
Wow. That high.
Yeah.
LMI is such a rort.
It's 3% of the loan amount in when you get up to those LVRs.
Okay, so let's round it out and say October 1, we go and buy something sub 800 in Sydney, we're saving 50K.
Yep.
Yeah. That's pretty appealing to the unsuspecting adult, isn't it?
It is.
It's like, wow, I save 50%. That's over 5% of the actual value of the property. That's not a recipe that says this 800K asset's going to be worth 1.5 in 10 years.
It is not.
So what we're saving is great on the way in, but be very careful that it's going to be an asset that's going to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
That's the biggest danger in this.
So if I'm living in a city and I'm thinking about buying a 1-bedroom unit because that's what I can afford, affordability is the thing. I've got an income that was over the cap for the guarantee, but I can buy a 1-bedroom unit now. What are my alternatives?
And that's a very good question. I think because this is attracted to the first home buyer that requires them to live in it, you've got to ask yourself, and everyone's got a different response to this, where can I live?
Yeah.
Am I chasing this scheme to take advantage of it because it is attractive? Am I prepared to go and live 20K out further from where I'm living now? Sacrifice maybe my lifestyle to get myself a leg up in the market straight away, and that could kickstart my wealth creation journey.
Yeah.
So if this was me, I'd be writing down the suburbs that I'm potentially able to live in for the short term. Because it is really the short term, isn't it? Like how long would we say we have to live in it for?
Well, for the stamp duty concession, it's 12 months
12
in
months.
the first, you've got the 12 months.
Yeah.
But for the first home guarantee, it's until you can refinance and get the government offers you guarantor, which we've been doing these for a lot of years of people that do qualify already, and we've been releasing them sometimes within a year.
Yeah.
Because the value of that property's gone up.
It's gone up.
But also if the property price doesn't increase, that could be there for a unascertainable
Correct,
amount
if
of
it's the
time.
wrong
So
asset.
what you're buying is even more important with
Yes.
that guarantee attached.
Yeah. So let's say it's a good asset that we've bought. Let's say worst case we plan for 3 years. We
Yeah.
get 5% a year. That's 15%. That's getting us back to an LVR of 80%. We're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we doing in the next 3 years? Are we able to sacrifice our location for the next 3 years to go out to a suburb that, it's not our A-list suburb to live in,
Yeah.
but we'll do it. Short-term pain, long-term gain type approach. Or even more outlandish is to maybe go to a regional location and set up shop out there and buy a bigger block, bigger house, even subdevelopment potential, and really kickstart my career.
Yeah, see, we saw that in the first wave of these first home guarantee schemes. So going back into sort of 5 years ago, we saw a huge amount of clients thinking, I'm living in this particular, and a lot of it was Sydney. I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse, I'm going to earn this amount of money in South Australia.
Anyway.
Or in Brisbane. And a lot of people moved their whole life to be able to buy that house. But that's a big call.
Yeah, and I suppose the message here today is not to be a Daryl Downer or a Debbie, but don't chase the scheme just for the scheme.
Yeah.
Like, think about your backyard, your strategy, your long term, what do I want in 10 years, those sort of things that we're always thinking about. None of that changes, does it?
Yeah.
It's just that this scheme's come across my desk. Does it suit me? If the shoe fits, fantastic. And there might be a lot of people out there that say, I just want security. I just want to get my own home or my own unit in the location I want, and I can do that now because I've got my 5% ready to go. The government are allowing me to save X amount because of the schemes. If it goes up, fantastic. If it doesn't, I'm not fussed because I've got a roof over my head.
Yeah.
And there's a portion of society that I totally get would do that.
100%. And if you're used to unit life and you love it and you go, I'm really going to be happy there longer term, buying that's perfect for you.
Absolutely.
But you wouldn't jump in and buy that hoping to make a huge amount of money to pivot in the short term, or would you?
Yeah. Well, I don't think so. But like we talk about 3 ways to make money in real estate: buy at discount, add value, capital growth.
Yeah.
So buy at discount in this type of market, rare for the right asset. The good assets you're not getting a discount on, I don't think. Add some value. Well, can I add cosmetic value to it? Can I extend it? Can I build something else on it? Those sort of thoughts. And then capital growth. So I want 2 out of those 3, if not 3 out of 3. So at the minute in the current climate, we can aim for 2 without the buy at discount sort of philosophy.
Okay.
So I'd be approaching it and say, has this type of asset got a history of capital growth, and can I cosmetically improve it?
So thinking strategically, if I was looking, and you just used a figure there of 3 years until you could, maybe release the first home guarantee, but that would be very different if it was a shorter time that it went up in value.
Yes.
And you just said something that made me think, if it's something I can add value to, well, then I could probably move out, add value, move back into the city, rent it out quicker.
Correct.
If I could add value to it.
Yeah, it's a steamroll effect, isn't it? It's like I get growth, I can add value, I get out of it sooner because of the growth, and I get back to living my life again wherever I was. So, yeah, it's money makes money, doesn't it? So it's just allows choices for people. So,
and I think with what we're talking about of a whole lot of different areas, and people might only be thinking really in a silo of where they live. And I think to encourage people to think, I guess, more laterally, if they're looking at different areas, how do you feel about maybe doing a bit of a deep dive into different areas, maybe regional towns or regional areas?
Yeah. Rach, I'm a country boy. I love talking regional, yeah.
Because we don't, like a lot of, if I lived in Sydney, I'm living in a unit in Sydney, or maybe even in Brisbane or in Melbourne. I don't know a lot of other areas.
No.
Like we both live on the Central Coast and we talk about it so much. Now I go to the city and see my friends there. They think they need a passport to go over the bridge to come to the coast.
Yeah.
Where, I commuted that for years. Why don't we do a bit of a deep dive into different areas that your BAs would know a whole lot about?
For sure. Let's do that.
So what are your big messages in this crazy market that we've got at the moment?
Yeah, well, obviously talk to someone like yourself that can understand the lending structures that are going to be right for you, first and foremost, because there's a lot of options out there in that space, and making sure you get that right. Number 2 would be think about what you want longer term and even midterm, like say 5 to 10 years. What's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? But have that 3-year parameter. Say, well, can I make that jump for that 3-year period? but knowing that it could be 5. So is anything changing in my life that's going to impact? But the big one for me, especially in the capitals, is what's happening with repayments and can I manage that? What the bank told me I could lend might not be what I can actually afford because what's going on in the background in my life and what might change in the first few years of me owning the property. Over and above, obviously, the asset selection is a big one. But unbelievable scheme. It's one of there've been a few over the years, but I think there's a sweet spot right now that says obviously massive undersupply and all these grants give people the leg up as a first homeowner, which is great because we want first homeowners to get into the market, but just don't go in with 1.5 eyes shut.
Yeah, so don't get caught up, do your research, but take advantage of this amazing scheme because it is. So many more people can get into the market and I think it's going to be a great time. Yeah,
and it's not capped either. Like they can bring into the market as many as they want, can't they?
100%. It's unlimited. That was the part that surprised me the most, the unlimited spots, because they've always capped it before at a certain amount of spots, maybe to protect themselves, but they've just said it's a free-for-all. So there's no wait times, there's no lottery. I remember the first time it came out. Yeah. I think it might have been going out to 2017, but it was like a lottery. We'd put an application in and maybe you'd get a spot on the scheme.
Now it's just open slather.
Open slather.
So question that I don't know the answer to, when does it end?
They haven't given an end date.
No.
Like when they bought I remember using I used a first home buyer grant in 2002.
Yes.
There was never an end date, but then they came out and said, okay, it's finishing now. So you never know when they're going to end it. So I guess it's just they'll do it as long as they see merit in it.
Yeah.
And it's not costing the government too much money or they're seeing a positive uptick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting times.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that has given you a little bit of clarity around the current state of play in the market. If you are watching us on YouTube, hello.
Hello.
And if you know somebody that is trying to get into the market and is big caught up in this first home buyer scheme, feel free to share this episode with them. You've been listening to This is Property with Rach and John, and we will see you next week.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Any information given in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and you should seek your own property advice before acting on anything you may hear in this podcast. If you want to start or advance your property education journey, John Pidgeon's book, Sort Your Property Out and Build Your Future, is available where all good books are sold, or via the link in the podcast show notes. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the hosts, the publisher, or their respective license holders.